Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Jack Neal. Today, we're at the Community Arboretum on the campus of Virginia Western Community College for this week's edition of Blue Ridge Excursions. Excursions is our community magazine show that highlights the many things happening in our area. We've been out there visiting many of you, and now we'd like to share some of the great things that we've seen. First off, we'd like to take you into Roanoke City, where culture has found a new home. Well, not exactly a new home, but the Jefferson Center certainly has a new look. From operas and orchestras to ballerinas in balloon suits, the center's Shaftman Performance Hall will host them all. Let's go now and check out how one community has made a project of an old high school.
Looking for a new cultural experience in Southwest Virginia? Patrons of the arts have a new venue to visit in Roanoke, and it's perfect for performances like Opera Roanoke's Carmen and the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra. But what you see here is a far cry from what this hall was only 10 years ago. Years of renovation and restoration have breathed new life into the old Jefferson High School.
When the entire process started in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, the school had been sitting derelict for nearly 15 years. It had been a high school from 1924 to 1974. It had seen 19,000 students graduate, but then it was left to sit to the ravages of weather, wind, and minor vandals. The place was an absolute shambles, as you can imagine, with rain coming in, with pigeons taking root here, with homeless people living here in the building, with teenagers skateboarding through the hallways on a regular basis. It was in absolutely deplorable condition. So the groundbreaking for the renovation and reconstruction and restoration of Shaftman Performance Hall, formerly the auditorium of Jefferson High School, began in May 1999 and came to virtual completion in May 2001.
$8.5 million and a lot of work have made the old Jefferson High new again as the Jefferson Center, which is home to several civic organizations and the Shaftman Performance Hall. The revitalization of this old building has been a project that has received tremendous local support.
Many corporations and generous individuals in the valley, as well as foundations throughout the state, have made this possible. In all, we have about 2,000 donors to the campaign, everything from $5 to $500,000. All those gifts together have made this project possible and made the Performance Hall a reality.
And becoming a reality has been no small task. The hall will have to be able to host everything from a single vocalist with a guitar to a full opera ensemble. Achieving that flexibility made renovations very difficult.
It's very unique when you build a theater that things have to work for theater that would not normally be a problem. Air conditioning ducts in the way, stuff like that.
While workers are still putting the final touches on the hall, it has been reconstructed using state-of-the-art technology, and that means a great experience for both the audience and the people behind the scenes.
Basically, I get to play with a lot of new toys, and I get to spec out and work with just really great equipment in this theater. We have a wonderful sound system.
And Joe says that they are planning to get their money's worth out of everything they've done to the entire center.
We're standing in the atrium, the Fralin Atrium, and what we hope to do with this space, which was finished actually as part of the original Jefferson Center renovation, is that you can come and have an entire evening here with us. You can come into this area, sit down, have a cocktail, listen to quiet music, lounge music, perhaps go into the Fitzpatrick Hall for dinner, perhaps a themed dinner that would match the concert that's going on that evening, come back over, go through the atrium, into the auditorium, watch the show, come out perhaps, visit with friends in the atrium during the intermission, and then after the concert is over, come back out, sit down, have candlelight, piano music, string quartet music, and enjoy yourself. Then go back out to the convenient parking and go home. So you've had a wonderful, convenient, one-stop, absolutely delightful evening of entertainment.
If you want to contribute to the Shaftman Performance Hall, you can take your seat. Name a seat for yourself, your company, a friend or family member. Your contribution means that a seat in Shaftman Performance Hall will be inscribed in your honor. Pay all at once or in installments. All gifts are tax deductible. For more information, call 540-343-2624.
Schaffman Hall hosted its opening week in May. Joe Glosson and his crew are taking the summer to hammer out a few bugs, but they'll be announcing their new fall schedule quite soon. Now let's leave Roanoke and head up Windy Gap Mountain to Hardy, Virginia, and see what our friends at Walter's Greenhouse have to say about planting a perennial bed.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Elwell, and we're here today at my family's business, Walter's Greenhouse, to talk about planting and planting a perennial bed. The first step in planting or planting a perennial bed is to choose your location or your site that you wish for your garden to be in. You want to make sure that you check for the shape that you want. Does it complement the landscape? What kind of sun location do you have? Is it sunny in the morning and shady in the afternoon? Those are all things that go into planning where you want it. You want to check and make sure that you know your answers when you go to your local nursery and start making your selections for your flowers. Do you want higher in the middle and tearing down on all sides, or do you just see it from one direction where you need taller in the one side and shorter in the front? The preparation for your perennial bed is best done ahead of time. You want to make sure that you free it of all weeds with Roundup or other weed killer. And from that point, you want to dig up the first 8 to 12 inches. A rototiller usually helps. And you want to improve the soil. You want to make sure that you have a proper loam. You want to either add sand, aerate it with a little peat moss, and throw in a little osmocote or slow-release fertilizer. Once you've chosen what your basic idea is going to be, you want tall in the back and you want it short in the front. You're looking at it from one direction. And you have chosen that you want to do your bed in pinks, blues, with a splash of yellow. So your next choice is going to be, what plants are you going to put in this flower bed? And your local nursery people can help you. If you go to the nursery and you have an idea that you're looking for plants between 36 to 12 inches tall so that you can acquire your different tiers of heights, they can help you choose. Now you know that you want it in pink, yellow, and blue. You know that you want it from 12 to 36 inches, and you want to make sure that you find plants that are going to bloom spring, summer, and fall. Once you're at the nursery making your selections, what you want to do is come with a diagram. Have your space laid out so that you know the square footage and so that you can do proper spacing in between your plants. Once you're there, ask for help. You know that you want something that's ranging from 12 inches to 36 inches in pinks, blues, yellows, whatever your color selection is. And then you can actually make a list of the plants that you'd like. Going through, you can mark down A is Achillea, I really liked that. And B is such and such, and I really liked that. And then you write the heights beside your list of plants, and then you can sit down with that diagram and actually lay out which goes where. You want to make sure that you arrive at having color from spring through fall. So your placement of your plants is pretty important. And you want to make sure that once your layout, I have one here that's listed, I have it A, B, C, D, so forth, listing out the plants, and then I have a diagram of my space. The approximate dimensions I've listed, and now I've placed items on the diagram according to their planting spacing. So you want to make sure that you've got your heights where you want, you've got your colors, combining all the way through your garden, and you've got it covered from spring to fall. Your next thing is you want to make sure that the plants you choose have good root systems. The most important thing in a perennial flower is that you have a quality plant. If you start off with a quality plant, it's going to ensure you much more success in your garden. I was going to say, ask them to show you the root system on your plant. Go ahead and they'll help you. They'll pop it out of the pot. You want to make sure that the root system's to the edge of the pot and that the roots are white and that the plant's healthy looking. I was going to say, don't be intimidated if you're coming to a greenhouse in the early spring and they've hardened things off and there's a little bit of damage on the leaves. The leaf and the plant itself has been hardened off, and you may have gone from a warm greenhouse, but if that root system looks good, you're okay. The next thing, now that you've got the diagram, you've selected your plants, you know where you're putting what, you want to go home to your garden that you've improved the soil and is ready to plant. I always suggest putting down a weed mat. It's just something you can pick up at your local hardware store. It's a thin layer of almost a plastic mesh, and you lay that down and then you slice and insert your plants. When you're putting in your plants, make sure that you put them even with the top of the container that they're in. You don't want to bury them any deeper because you could possibly create crown rot, and you want to make sure that they're deep enough and level so that they're stable as well. After you've inserted all your plants and you've got everything where they belong, you want to water them in well. And that first 2 weeks after you've planted is crucial. You want to make sure that you have them watered and fed. Feeding every 3 weeks in a perennial bed is a good idea, but make sure that you've not stressed the plants. In that first 2 weeks, go ahead and, based on the sun, you may need to water them every day, you may need to water them 2 to 3 times that week, but go ahead, get them established, and then you can enjoy them. Enjoy them all summer, and then towards fall you can either choose to trim back and clean up your bed in the fall, about the end of September, or you can choose to do it in the spring. I wouldn't recommend putting things in between or cutting back things in between that time because you're opening up fresh wounds and the frost can get in. So for your most success, go ahead and either put your bed together or put your flower bed to bed in the fall, or go ahead and trim it back and start it fresh in the spring.
And as always, if you want more information or have a gardening question, feel free to give the folks at Walters a call at 540-427-3578. Now let's take a look at a hobby that will take over a little more than your front yard. We found a man who has been collecting tanks. Yes, I'm talking about those big armored monsters. He's been collecting them for more than 20 years. He's brought his hobby to Danville, where he plans to open a museum. We've gotten a sneak peek. Now let's go to Southside's new home for military history.
Most young boys have an interest in military hardware. This is just the end result. Do you ever have a really silly idea and have nobody around to talk you out of it? That's essentially how the museum came about. I really didn't know what I was walking into. I wanted to collect Army tanks, knew where there were several, and decided that it would be a good idea to form a tank museum, not really having much knowledge in what it takes to really run a museum professionally. The first armored vehicle was a World War II British armored car. It's here in the collection now. As a military collector all through my life, one day stumbled upon an armored car and said, oh, that looks really nice little toy to have. It fits in the garage, and bought the first one, and after the first, we're working on almost 100 now. In the 20-year time period, the collection has grown to 95 tanks and artillery pieces, and it's about a 50-50 split. That's just the big items. We have 150 machine guns, bazookas, mortars, flamethrowers, other larger weapons we call medium weapons, medium size. Small arms, we're not really collecting a museum into that field, but we do have a measly 50 small arms in the collection, and 700 plus tank and cavalry pieces of headgear, over 750 tank and cavalry uniforms. Earliest item 1509, latest item made yesterday. And in that collection of uniforms, there's 42 tank and cavalry generals. A whole lot of them in history books that you'll recognize their name.
The first museum opened in New York in 1981, but as the collection grew, space became limited.
We had to find a new home. We outgrew our facility. Real estate in New York is very expensive. It's not a truly gun-friendly state. We put the word out in the industry, and we're looking for a new home, someplace where we could accomplish what every museum in this field dreams of, and that is 100% containment of the collection under a roof. We were looking for a facility that was donable. Not too much of a chance to find too many opportunities like that. In searching, we were able to uncover this facility that was up for donation by a large corporation who was excess to their needs at the time. So we really didn't have too many choices on picking an area. We wanted to be in the southeast. We wanted to stay somewhere there. We could have been in Timbuktu for all we would have known. When somebody hands you a building, that's pretty much where you're going to go. It just was fortuitous that it ended up being in a nice area, has good potential. It's a very nice facility. It could be very hard to beat this facility. New York was a 10,000 square foot building on an acre of property with 2 other 1 acres that were rented to house some of the tanks, not counting all the other places around the country where I have a tank here, a tank there, sitting around waiting to be delivered. This building is like an airport, a city. It's 330,000 square feet. Not 33,000, 330,000 square feet on 90 acres. The building and parking lot take 20 acres. It's a city. Restoration shop is about 10,000 square feet just for doing the small items. We don't actually pull the tanks in there. That's just where we do engines, gearboxes, and small things in our restoration shop. We do most of the work ourselves. Very, very little ever be offloaded, but once in a great while we'll have to bring in somebody with a little more technical ability than we have. Ground-up restoration is totally disassembling the vehicle, every nut and bolt, totally disassembled, spread it on the floor, all 10, 15,000 pieces, restore it all, fix it all up, and put it all back together again, just as the factory would do it. In the main hall here, where we have most of our current storage of our armor, the earliest vehicle in our collection is an M1917 World War I light tank. It's American, also called a 6-ton special. It's also called, well, I used to call it a Renault, but I guess it's proper now to call it a Renault. All right. It's one of only 19 in the world. All those 19 are owned by big federal collections that cannot be touched by anybody, bartered, sold, or whatever at any time. There's only 5 in private hands. To myself, it's my baby. It's the Mach 4 Panzer. It's a Panzerkampfwagen IV Ausführung H&J. It's an H&J model of the Panzer IV, built in mid-43. It's the only Panzer IV in private hands in this hemisphere of the planet. This is the Germans' main fighting tank of World War II. It's a tank that every GI called a Tiger, because they only had a few Tigers, and they got no credit going back to their soldiers at the end of the battle saying, well, I fought a Panzer IV, they fought a Tiger. It looks somewhat similar from a great distance, especially when you're being shot at. I am doing it alone currently. We've had some donations, a lot more are required. Because of the sheer size of the facility and the cost to move our large collection from New York down here. Now, we've currently brought 1/3 of it down here by our own means. There's still 2/3 to go, and it's the more expensive 2/3, and that's almost $1 million right there in itself. The entire project will come in at probably around $10 million at phase 1, not counting the developmental costs for our battlefield park, which we hope to do movie making and reenactments in outside. And that'll probably be about another $1 million to $2 million on a secondary phase down the road. In a project like this, there are just too many things that have to fall into line for it to be a success, or for that matter, not be a success. All these milestones have been exceeded. The last milestone we have, the very last one, is the fundraising to renovate the facility. You have to have the collection, you have to have the licenses, you have to have a wife that won't divorce you when you do it, a family that'll put up with it, the location, yada, yada, yada. There's all kinds of things you have to have before something like this can happen. The odds are against you on all these things. I have only met one person in my life that ever said this project would work. But we're here, and we're one of the best in the world. We'd like to be open sometime in about a year-ish, okay? But to open this whole facility is strictly predicated upon success of fundraising. But we hope to be successful in our fundraising so we can utilize the facility and have the entire collection up for view, as opposed to a small segment of it. It's not a case of if, it's only a case of when.
And from Danville, we'll trek over to the other side of the state to meet another one of Blue Ridge Public Television's Young Heroes. The Young Hero Award was designed to recognize young people who have overcome significant obstacles in their lives and gone on to set a positive example for others. We'll be introducing you to this year's heroes in coming weeks. Now, meet Sarah Poston, a young lady who has brought a few firsts to her hometown of Clintwood.
Everybody has things that happen to them in life that kind of, I don't know, throw you for a loop or something, but she has just bounced back and done so well. She just takes what life has given her and makes the best that she can of it.
Bouncing back has been hard for the entire Poston family. 10 months after the death of their father, they had another tragedy to cope with.
We were actually run out of the road by a coal truck. Sarah was thrown, we were in a small pickup truck. She was thrown out of it. All 3 of us were, my younger daughter. And she landed face down in a ditch of water. The truck we were driving landed on my youngest daughter, so my youngest daughter was screaming, so I knew she was all right. Sarah was drowning in the ditch, so I had to run to her.
After months of recovery and rehabilitation, Sarah's families, friends, and community were glad to have her back.
We just prayed to keep her. We said, God, whatever shape you give her back to us in, that's the shape we'll take. We won't complain. And He gave us back to her with no brain damage. Her legs don't work. That's it. And half the time we don't realize that her legs don't work because she goes where Sarah wants to go and she does what Sarah wants to do.
And that includes becoming the first student in a wheelchair to attend Clintwood Elementary and the first student in a wheelchair to participate in the marching band. Nothing slows her down.
Sarah's fine. There's nothing wrong with Sarah. I mean, she's got the best attitude in the world, and she treats others like she would want to be treated.
But getting there hasn't been easy.
It's been real hard trying to get to where I am now. It's just been, we've been through a lot, and I'm telling you.
Sarah credits her family, particularly her little sister, with helping her achieve all that she has.
She helps me so much. I don't know what I'd ever do without her. I just love her with all my heart, and she just feels special to me.
Whenever she woke up out of the coma, we were telling everybody in the hospital. It was so funny. We've been through a lot together. Love her a lot.
And it appears that the feeling is mutual.
We'll be introducing you to more of our young heroes in the coming weeks. But right now, let's move back over to Roanoke, where the Daughters of the American Revolution are making plans for their annual antique show and sale. The Daughters' mission is to promote historical preservation, education, and patriotism. And their annual antique show helps them do just that. Their 35th show will be next weekend. Let's take a look at what they're doing to get ready. And then we'll stay tuned to see what's going on in your area with our community calendar.
The first DAR Antique Show and Sale was held at the Patrick Henry Hotel in downtown. Now held in the Roanoke Civic Center Exhibit Hall, it has grown to include 43 exhibitors.
We have a large committee, and each member has a responsibility, and when the show comes around, everything falls together. It's just a miracle. It's great.
Well, we're going to have a variety of dealers, so therefore we'll have a variety of antiques at the show. We have dealers coming from 9 or 10 different states. We will have certainly jewelry, because that's very popular, a lot of silver, furniture, oriental items, wicker, books, old prints, lots of decorative accessories that will include glass and pottery, so it'll be a wide variety.
Many treasures of the past, and everybody seems to have a good time. There are lots of smiles in this hall at that time.
The show will also have a variety of specialists on hand.
We have 4 special events: jewelry appraisals, antique appraisals by Ken Farm and Associates. We also have crystal repair for the run of the show, and we have an expert silversmith that will give advice and be able to do silver work.
But this is more than just an antique show. It enables the DAR to do many things for the community, like American history scholarships, good citizen medals and awards, donating books to libraries, assisting patients at the VA Medical Center, and so much more.
One of the important things we do locally is that we participate in the naturalization ceremonies that are held in the U.S. District Court here in Roanoke, maybe 8 times a year. And we greet the new citizens and present them with an American flag, and we also have a mini reception for them, and at which time we have a good time meeting them and talking with them, and they like to visit with each other. It's a very important day for many people. It's exciting.
The show runs June 29th through July 1st, and the admission price is good for all 3 days.
And here's your community calendar. It's a look at what's happening in your area this week. That's all the time we have for this week's episode of Excursions. Be sure to stop here next week when we visit the NASCAR circuit in Stewart, as well as a visit to a Pioneer Park in Tazewell. Thanks for joining us. Good evening.
For more information about Blue Ridge Public Television and our local programs, check out our website at www.wbra.org. And if you have an interesting story that you'd like to share with us, please contact us by email at brex@wbra.org or give us a call here at the station, 540-344-0991 or toll free 888-332-7788. We're always glad to hear from our viewers. See you next week for Blue Ridge Excursions.